But the main thing is like the understanding of the macroeconomic picture and just kind of like taking the curtain over, like kind of off your eyes, because a lot of the time, you know, we've grown up in this environment
Mhm.
and we have a certain perspective of what money is. Like, there's so many different terms of money
Mhm.
and different words you can use to describe money. I'm sure you have money, you have stacks, you
Mhm.
have bills,
Mhm.
racks, dollar, guap, like all of these different kind of ways to
Lingo.
describe money. But what is actually money? And we wanted to kind of make this specific to the macro environment of the economics which doctors are facing
Mhm.
in the current climate. So I just wanted to kind of ask you if you have any kind of ideas why we brought you in as the first kind of non-medic to discuss the economics of doctors. Is this something you've heard in the media recently at all by any chance?
I mean, considering that I'm generally known to do with Bitcoin specifically and whatnot, and I've invited here, I'm assuming there's a connection between the two. And I think it's interesting that with Bitcoin, I mean, well, it could have been anything, but it happened to be Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, when you go down a rabbit hole of trying to understand money, as opposed to just accepting what you have and using it, you find that it actually touches almost everything. And no doubt, I mean, it touches everything because this is what we all work for. This is what we pay our bills in. This is what we essentially, it's the tool used for communication. It's a tool used for exchange of value and exchange of work and labor. And it's a tool used for yeah, well, that's basically it, for exchange of labor. So it will touch everything. It does. It is. I mean, even for example, like international trade, global politics, all of it comes into play at some level. Maybe not directly, but there is some element. So, yeah, I mean, I'm guessing it's something to do that.
Definitely. I mean, that's exactly, you know, what the way we learned with you is the means of transacting the IOU, essentially.
Yeah.
And the most robust form of money that we have today.
Yeah.
With regards to diving down the rabbit hole, this is something you described. Once you do dive down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin, you actually uncover the reality of inflation, kind of taxation, how government expenditure is done, what actually is fiat currency, the conventional currency as we know it. And so with regards to kind of explaining the picture, we just wanted to kind of present you a few statistics with regards to what's actually happening in the current climate for doctors. And it is heavily related to kind of inflation and how doctors around the world, particularly within this country, they feel that they're not being paid their worth. They feel that their altruistic nature or their kind of sound intentions to do good towards society is taken advantage of, and therefore they're not being compensated sufficiently for their output, for their labor. Okay.
You know, it's interesting because the certain phrases you used, sorry to interrupt, certain phrases you used, which it needs to be explained. So there's this kind of like this meme in the Bitcoin space where there's parallels drawn between Bitcoin and the Matrix.
Yeah.
Even the phrase used down a rabbit hole, which is actually from what's it called? What's the book called again? Alice in Wonderland.
Right.
But the idea is that we've all been raised and exist in a system, and the system has just all been around us, engulfing us, and we haven't been able to see beyond the system, much like Neo. But there came a point whereby he was able to see behind the system and realize what no one saw.
Yeah.
So that's the same thing, like I said, about when it comes to money. We all grew up knowing that money is just a piece of paper or these coins. We've all grown up to know that when we go to university, you get older, you get to university, you get a degree, you get a profession, and you get a house, and you get married, and you have kids. The path of life was always kind of clear to us, and therefore we never got to, or never thought to ask or scratch the surface beyond all of that. And you just touched upon the issue of inflation and doctors not realizing, not receiving what they feel their due is. The remuneration is not being adequate, and that's literally a byproduct of a current system, which again most people are unaware of. So, for example, since 1971, for example, and we can speculate as to whether the series of events of unpegging the dollar from gold was the catalyst, or was it a symptom of something greater? Whatever the situation is, the point and fact of the matter is, on pretty much all metrics, you find a divergence between the cost of things, cost of living, and remuneration, as in how much it costs or how much your wages are. So wages have technically gone up at a certain rate, but the cost of everything else has gradually grown over time.
Yeah.
And that's especially exaggerated in things like real estate and, more importantly, education and medicine.
Right.
Medicine, if you look at the statistics of the cost of medical treatment, not just, I don't know about the wages of the doctors, but I'm assuming it's a similar thing. But cost of medical treatment has gone exponentially higher compared to what people can afford. Just as a ballpark idea, in the 60s, if you worked and grafted a normal menial job, 4 years on the grind, paying nothing other than saving your money, you had enough money to buy a house.
Wow. That's unheard of nowadays.
That's just 4 years.
Wow.
Now, if you had just like, let's say 30,000 a year in London, and you grinded for 10 years on the grind, nothing else. You lived with your mum, you paid no bills, you paid no rent. That's it, just the 30, and that's 30,000 after tax. All you have is 300,000 after 10 years. That's still not enough to really buy a house. You have to grind another 10 years to be able to get something relatively okay in terms of a house in London. So that's 20 years compared to 4. What happened? So what you're probably going to discuss now is not even unique to the medical field. It's across the board. But specifically on the charts, when you look at the cost of things, some things over time have actually got cheaper. Ironically, like basically technology things, because technology basically means that as time moves on, you find easy ways to make the same thing cheaper, which is basically how phones and TVs get cheaper over time. I mean, no, some people might not think that, but it does. Whereas other things, the things that you actually need, our health, our food, our accommodation, these things go up exponentially.
The basics
go up exponentially. And just an idea, I mean, in the 60s, one person could work and feed his family and his wife and kids, and that's it, all good. Then at some point, the wife had to come out and work. Now, that's not even enough. No, but it's serious, we laugh, but that's... If the trend continues, what's next?
Kids are going to be at work.
Kids are going to work as well, just to support one family. I mean, as you can see, it's getting worse. But anyway, I don't want to stop you from that. I want to just make clear that this idea of this meme of the Matrix or going down the rabbit hole is because we are finally being able to look back and say, wait, what's happening? And why is it happening? And more importantly, does it need to happen? This is the issue. I mean, some might say, oh, it's happening. But the question is, did it need to be that way? But anyway, let you continue.
That's very, very interesting what you said. And I think now more than ever, the rhetoric which Noam Chomsky propagated, obviously, I don't know about all of his views in totality, but what he mentioned with regards to wage slavery. And I remember someone in an interview asked him, okay, but you can just leave your job if you wanted to. So how's it slavery? But then his response was, okay, but you can't leave your job. Like a majority of the population, where would they get their food from if that were to be the case? So it's just very interesting how this kind of rhetoric nowadays more than ever is very, very relevant.